person of my generation, and Ruth Ann knows this because I've called her on the phone. I like calling people on the phone. It's just easier to communicate that way. So I think if someone lapses on their membership, you send friendly reminders, but I've had to reinforce to our staff, let's keep sending that newsletter, keep them as part of the family, and not take them off of the list, because I don't see any reason for that unless someone has moved or expressly said, we live in a different area now, we're not interested. If a person communicates that to us, then we'll take them off the membership list, and I'm certainly.
Well, yeah, and there's nothing more embarrassing than public shaming a dead guy.
Oh.
And the horses and all that stuff. But anyway, some of you are from organizations that are long established, and you are already to the point where, some of your early patrons are beginning to pass on. Eddie, we talked about this the other day with some of the glider pilots. I mean, there comes a point where you have a bygone era. How do you handle that? Well, it's great if you can find out, but just tread gently. And as if you're ever in the position where you're realizing that the role is dwindling, that is a real wake-up call that it's time to build new audience.
There's some dead guys I'd like to shame. We have a pretty generous grace period, no one here, I hope. What was I going to say? Anyhow,
Generous grace period.
Generous grace period, thank you. So we have a very traditional, I think most museums use this. You send out your advance notice, usually 30, 40 days prior to the expiration of their membership, and then after that period you give them a grace of a couple weeks, and then generally a third reminder. And even after that, we give people another year of grace period, so they continue on the list all the period of time. One of the challenges for sure is dealing with changes of address, divorces, people dying. That's hard to keep up with, especially if we have a lot of members. We have a couple thousand. We're a small museum, and we have programs, but programs don't answer those questions. So you really need a network of people who are going to help you. And of course, you do get returned, notices and so forth that can help. But anyhow, that's I guess where I was going with that is that we, are pretty keen on retention, certainly, and you just have to keep reminding people. Oh, I know what I want to say. We do use social media very aggressively. I've got a young staff, and they're just fanatical on every platform you can ever imagine, going day and night. And so that's a significant part of our building of our base of people who are committed to the museum.
So membership recruitment and finding new audiences in a membership program is probably on the mind of everyone in this room. In your experience, how do you approach these topics of membership, recruitment, and finding new audiences? How do you experience that within your program?
Okay, yeah, I'm going to riff off of what Howard said. Social media is a great low expense way to get yourself out there. Especially within the online communities, being able to figure out, who your audience is and which platforms they might be most interested in, and then begin generating content out there. Generate media that's interesting to people outside of your membership. Say you're having an exhibition on trains, and you start tagging some of your things within that train, or specific historical period. Then all of a sudden you're starting to build interest, and people are discovering you because they're discovering you through the content that you put out. And that's one way that you can begin, what I see as a funnel, right? So digital means is a funnel to get people, all of the people in the world that might be interested in your work, to start becoming more interested, to start following your posts, or maybe, and then if they follow your posts, get them to join your mailing list, and they get to join your mailing list, and do a recruitment, a campaign to turn those interested people into members. So I always see as a bit digital means as a funnel to bring people out there that are online into becoming more connected to your organization. The other way is looking at your website. Who is coming to your website? Is, members, non-members are coming to your website. So web analytics is a great way to kind of get a sense of where are people coming from. I also talked to Eddie yesterday, and he's got a lot of members that come in that, not members, but he has a lot of visitors that pass through Lubbock on the way to somewhere else. And so what I was thinking is, they're working on trying to capture more data about those folks, like through zip codes. So we can, okay, if you start seeing that you get a lot of people coming from Albuquerque in May of this time of year, well, maybe that's a good place to start creating greater awareness of your institution in the place where those people are coming from. So looking at data and physical visits, like people that are semi-interested, becoming more and more interested so that you can funnel them into becoming a member. That's how I approach building new audiences. That's why at TAM I'm really focused on building our Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook followers, because those are opportunities to start getting people's attention through the content that you produce, and then being able to get them more and more involved with your organization.
I think that, ask yourself this question, are you your community? When I look at my staff, it's roughly a third minority. It vacillates back and forth, but we aggressively pursue keeping our staff representative of the community aggressively. Our board, I was once on a panel, and I was the last person to speak, and I felt like I didn't belong there. There was a director of a major museum and a major association, and they talked about the studies they did, and their relationship to the community, and the things that came out of it. They had these big, ponderous publications with them, and consulting firms they had dealt with, and I didn't know what to say. It was my turn. It was very interesting that one person from this mega museum said that on our board of 50, we now have 3 minorities. I thought, wow. And it was my turn. I didn't know what to say. And I said, just do it. We had a third of our board minority. I couldn't come up with any formula. You just do it. You have to believe in it. You have to be sure that it's always on the agenda. It's probably almost the first thing you think of is representing your community. Another quick anecdote, a couple of years ago, a long time ago actually, a woman who was new on our board and very wealthy and very active in the community, she came into my office, she said, Howard, I'm resigning from the board, and it's nothing personal. She said, I like you very much, and I've learned a lot about what museums ought to be, but it's just not where I thought I wanted to be. And what she was speaking of, and she explained it, was that she saw boards as the purview of the rich. Kind of like the country club, a place, and when I looked at other organizations, that's pretty much what the case was. But she was very sweet about it. She says, I do get what you're about, and I'll continue to support you. I'm happy to say last year, she gave us over $200,000. So, and if you see what I mean, you can build that relationship, and it doesn't have to be at that level in that way. So if you look at our board, you were there at AAM, and they were there, and my immediate past president, our African-American population is 2%, and my last board president was African-American, my current one is Hispanic. I've had one Mexican native as board president, and the board looks like that, but also the exhibitions, the programs, and finally we are fortunate we bought an entire block of buildings, and that's another thing. We want to reach into the community, and we have repurposed those buildings, and 2 of them are what I call community galleries. One is the Coop, got a curious name, but anyhow, it's there for just about any group in the community, anyway. An individual, a student, a teacher, as long as it's visual art related, to have that space free. And it's a beautiful gallery, and we try to correlate their exhibitions with openings we have at the museum. And then I have another gallery that we reserve largely for contemporary living artists, young artists, and that's been a real wonderful, I think, way of us reaching more broadly into the community too. Then of course the other thing is we tap heavily into the volunteer core at our museum through our membership, and so it just comes back to that idea of being totally inclusive and being very, very committed to that in everything you do.
Ruth Ann, your thoughts on anything on finding new audiences and
Oh, good, I forgot the question. Okay.
yeah,
Recruitment.
right. So recruitment and audience engagement.
Okay. guys are right. You know, your membership is your gateway to everything else. Through your membership is where you find your volunteers, it's where you find board members, it's where you find donors. And we haven't talked a lot about that, but a membership, a healthy membership is really necessary for donor relations, because you can't just go out into your community and say, let's go drive over in the rich part of town and let's see who lives there and who wants to give to our museum, because it does not work that way. They have to love you first. And the way it is with audience development, it's related to community engagement. They are not going to become a member, and a donor is not going to write you a check unless they can relate to what you are doing. You must be relevant. You must have a place for them. They must be able to see what your purpose is. You know, I would say something like, ooh, they have to believe in your mission. They may not know your mission, but they have to get it. They have to get what it is you're trying to do. And those who have brought members through the process to become donors know that this is not an overnight process. This is not going to happen over the summer, not usually, unless you're Howard. It not usually does this happen, but that is where it begins. So as you're thinking about audience development and membership development, you have to think about your community profile and your community engagement. Nobody's going to write you a check because you're good guys, even though you are. They are only going to part with their own money if they believe in what you're doing.
I think a common thread of what we've seen is that those memberships, the donations, when you see big money coming in, a lot of times those members of the community want to see you having an impact with the underserved communities and those that perhaps can't afford the highest level of membership or to attend galas. How many, just another quick poll, I know we did some polls earlier, how many people work at museums with no admission fee? I knew I do. So that's kind of a struggle. When you're a free museum, you know, what membership benefits do you offer? And I think Howard had a really good thought on that. You know, you have memberships, but those memberships essentially are you're cultivating people by making them familiar with your mission and engaging people. Something I wanted to get in that I mentioned at the Houston TAM fundraising conference is the North American Reciprocal Museum Program. Is anybody familiar with that program? It's the NARM. So I think at least a few years ago it was at $350 for a 2-year buy-in. The one thing that I'm not crazy about NARM is that members have to be at the $100 a year or above level to qualify, and that's an NARM requirement. But it does provide value, some value to members, and that they get free admission to other museums across the state. So I just wanted to give a quick plug for NARM. It has been good for us, especially for a museum that doesn't have an admission fee. So moving on to our next question for our panel of experienced experts. How can museums harness technology and data to enhance membership programs? And I think, Alex, you're perfectly suited to start this off, or how to use tech and data to enhance membership programs.
Okay, yeah, so we talked a lot about all the work that goes into recruiting, retaining, renewing members. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to do manually, especially as you have larger membership base. So it's critical that you have a CRM, a customer constituent relationship management tool. It helps a great deal on making sure that you can set reminders for yourself, you can set automatic renewals, so that you don't find yourself and you're like, oh, that person was supposed to renew last month, I forgot to send, so the path that I'm talking about, this journey, is something that you can plug into a tool and then make sure that it's helping you to automate some of the process, especially if you're a staff of one or a staff of few. A CRM is really critical for making sure that you're following through with your commitments that you've made after you establish this kind of journey. It's also important because it helps gather data. One of the things that I'm interested in is engagement scores, and your CRM or any way that you can gather data about your members and how they're engaging, you can score them. Attending a program may give them a certain score, or visiting your website may give you a certain score. It's another way for you to see what is the likelihood of that member renewing. How engaged are they? It happens. I've worked with members that they sign checks and they don't ever visit your website, they don't ever attend a program, they don't do anything, but they believe in what you're doing and they're a member for that reason. But more likely, it's people want to be a member because they want to be engaged, and if you're not engaging to them and they show low scores, that's a good way of kind of using that data to help you understand where you're at risk of losing somebody. So for me, I feel like a CRM is really good because it helps bring together a lot of different, break down some silos between that information, so you can start seeing how somebody's purchases, how somebody's attendance at events, that starts adding up to kind of create a data profile of your member. And so that's something that I've been paying attention to. But even looking at your budgets, if you have a program budget and you have members and non-member fees, and you start looking at the data and you find out, oh, we just created a program where no members showed up, it was all non-members, that's a problem. So even looking at how you create your classes and your accounting system can help reveal some information about membership engagement and help you look at your program to see what's working and what isn't.
Big believer in technology. It's not the answer to everything, but it's exciting. The kind of things it's helping us do that I think we should have been doing decades ago. And now we can do it better and easier, like complete access to our collections. There are still institutions that were very exclusive and deny access, but if you look at the Met, for example, or the Rijksmuseum, I like that one, the Dutch Museum, where you can even download high-def images of anything in their collection, and they'll show you how to make T-shirts out of it. Now that's pretty interesting, I think. But also, besides the fact that I have a fanatical social media team at the museum, and one little caution there is you need to have some oversight of that dialogue. You can get into a little bit of a fix if you're not careful. I had one staff person who criticized somebody in online media, and that was not pleasant, but we resolved that. And that's the other thing, we do engage the online media very actively. And sometimes it helps us in curious ways. We had a controversial item that had some sexual content. And they made a big deal out of it. We thought, oh, we're in trouble. And it just increased our audience tremendously. So people in St. Angelo are lonely and bored, So we, but anyhow, I love technology. I think it keeps evolving. And in a couple of years, this didn't even exist a few years ago. I remember seeing some person walking down, you used to be able to know people were nuts because they talk to themselves, and now you see it all the time, but well, it's empty. But this is going to disappear, and it's going to be here somewhere. It's going to happen so fast. I just totally can see it, but I think it's wonderful. But still, that face-to-face engagement, when we thank people, they get a hard copy letter. We do use the print media because it actually still has more impact than anything else. We test that all the time. But I think that the technology thing just presents so many opportunities and whole new dimensions. We're even thinking about having a national or international competition to let people access our collections, design exhibits, and then maybe present one of those exhibits. It's like the prize winner. Wouldn't that be fun? That wouldn't be hard to do. So I think we're going to do that. Now I got to do it, right?
Yeah. This is a recorded session.
Well, you've heard plenty of technology, so I'll put in a little plug for data. Data sounds very official, scientific, and scary, and it is not. It is just the numbers, the information that you must have to make wise decisions. I once took over a membership program, I will keep the name private, that had a dozen membership categories. And the difference in the benefits and frankly the price was minuscule. And I'm like, why do we have this many? And I said, run these numbers. Let's find out. I mean, how many, there were categories in which there were no members. So, you know, why didn't we look at that before? And so I encourage you to go home and look at that. If you are making your membership program too complicated for absolutely no reason, then don't do that. And the only way you're going to know is if you look at your data.
Thank you, Ruth Ann. Okay, we have about 15 minutes left in the session, so let's open it up to questions. Does anyone have any questions for the panel? Yeah.
Have any of you done a cost-benefit analysis of your membership program?
I think that's where I began, and it sounds backwards, doesn't it? Because we lose money, because the product we put out, everything from the brochure to free admission, which doesn't impact this much, to just the cost of the mailings and things inherent in that. We know we're losing money, but we're still understanding that the real value proposition is about engagement with the community. But it's quite true that if you don't convey what you're doing appropriately, you're not going to have the resources on the other end. I will tell you, and I've done comparatives, and this is where I really like to just look at other institutions. It's not easy because there's not a lot of data and information out there. We don't share a lot. A few years ago, our little West Texas Triangle shared some data about, you know, salaries and things like that. So it's kind of hard to get, but I dig as deeply as I can, and I see our relative support coming from grants, foundations, individuals within the community, annual giving. And I can see we're going off the chart relatively compared to others. And so this kind of giveaway, in a sense, is a gateway. And I'll tell you, one of the things that our approach has really done for us is foundations. Love it. It's been used as an example over and over again. And you know, we don't go out and make a lot of noise about how great we are, but sometimes nice things happen. We got the National Museum Service Award in a ceremony at the White House. That came out of nowhere, but somehow that was recognized. And so I think that community engagement, that's my proposition of value for our membership thing. It's hard to do because it's not done that way, and if anybody tries it, probably you're going to have a very hard time getting there. We were able to pull it off because we were new, you know, started from scratch. But even that I had to modify. If you look at our brochure, you'll see we have categories. We do, but we don't pitch those categories at all. You know, I try to almost ignore that. It's the $10 thing that we're most interested in. But the other side of the ledger is what is the overall impact, not what are you getting out of membership directly.
Anyone have a question? Yes.
This is not so much a question, but kind of what I hear you all saying and kind of pulling it together. But it's actually, I think, affording us a bit of a revised way to think about membership, where we're looking at essentially building sustainable relationships for positive impact, right? Because our members, like you said, it's about that impact that members want to have. How is the money being used? How do they support what we're doing? And then taking that one step further, it's tailored to your specific community. So what works well for San Angelo, you know, is one model that might work in a lot of different places. The Dallas Museum of Art was doing a few years ago, what other organizations might do, and so that might be a future possibility for next year's TAM is kind of presenting some case studies, you know, in a more detailed way that could then be tailored. But I really think what we're talking about here, you talk a lot about building relationships, but then it's the so what afterwards. What are those relationships about? And it's really about that impact.
Yeah, I want to address, like, the segmentation is really important to me. And that's something I've learned over time is, you know, the traditional method is this shotgun approach that everyone is interested in all the things that we do, and it's just not true. You know, if they're interested in, and if you can start identifying how to break your audiences down into, okay, this is the folks that are interested in this and this and this, then you can tailor your message, more personalize your messages. And then personalization is, it's a trendy term, but that's what technology is affording us, because we can connect with people on an individual level. And Yeah, all it is about turning on filters and understanding how to send out messages to folks that are relevant to them. And I talk about this sometime with our business members. You know, they come from a time when they want to just mass mail everything. And I'm like, okay, well, let's take it back. If I mass mail the type of work that you do to all of our members, not all of our members are interested in what you have to offer. And if I keep sending them things, then they're going to stop listening. And if I keep sending more things, they're going to opt out of my communications and I've lost them completely. Wouldn't it be better if we started qualifying, you know, who might be interested in working with you and start segmenting our audiences so that we give them the information that's most relevant to them so that they don't tune us out? And that's very important to me as I begin looking at memberships. How do I, you know, certainly there's some general newsletter type things that go out, but other things you could be more sensitive in how you get information out to your members.
And I think with renewal letters, I completely agree with everything that's been said about technology and data, but also that personal touch, whether it comes through a phone call or with every renewal letter that we send out, I write a personal note and sign the letter with a pen. I don't stamp it. If I don't know the person personally, it will just kind of be a standard, you know, thank you for supporting the Bell County Museum. We hope to see you soon. If I know the person, I'll write a longer letter, but I think that's it's just really been important in membership retention and writing that personal message. One of my dearest friends runs an international nonprofit, Urban Promise Honduras. I know what they're doing, so I delete every kind of mass email that I get from UPH, I delete. But when he sends a handwritten letter or a note, I save it, and it's just because of that personal touch. If I were to receive a membership letter with a stamped autograph or, you know, a stamped signature, you know, there's it takes away from the value, and it takes time. You know, signing and writing notes for 200 membership renewals might take time, but I think it's worth it. It's very low tech, it's time consuming, but that's a pretty basic thing, but I started doing that immediately. We saw results. It's really simple. It's just doing the work on that.
So there's a resource that might be interesting to you that was put out by Museum. That's museum with a C. They provide mobile solutions to museums. They're also really good at educating on some of the trends that are happening. And so the post that we're looking at here it's from September 13th, 2018 from the Museum blog, and it's called 5 Creative and Innovative Experiments in Museum Membership. So that might be a helpful place to start, get you some ideas on some of the newer things that are happening that leverage technology within membership programs.
Yes, sir.
I'd just like to make a comment about NARM. We've been calling our renewals to board members once a month, all come into the boardroom and we all take a list of people that need renewals, and we take our cell phones and we call the ones we know. And the first thing we mention is how happy we are that they've been a member and how much we want them to renew, and we mention NARM. And every single person I call renews because of that. Because we all travel and we all take advantage of that free membership. So I'm really glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, NARM has been fantastic. It's low cost, and you with members, it's something you can pitch. I think it was 900 museums 2 years ago participating, and it's probably 1,100 now. You know, the member does have to have that $100 annual membership, but we've had visitors. We had a renewal the other day, and he realized his NARM membership had expired, and he wanted to renew to get that NARM back. So that's something that I would highly encourage. It's low cost for the museum and really high value in ARM. And it looks like Alex has a brochure.
Yeah. This was at the El Paso Museum of History. I just walked up to the membership table. It was kind of like a secret shop. Like, what? Okay, tell me about your membership. And this was an interesting thing that came up. I did not know about NARM, but yeah, this reciprocal program, and that sounds like, he said 900 museums, and it's spread across the United States. I mean, this is a pretty good breadth of museums.
basic membership is $175. That's pretty darn cheap.
I will say the worst, asking about all of it,
Yeah.
none of the gyms in New York City on there.
Right.
But all,
But in Dallas, I mean,
yeah, all
Yeah.
all the Texas. And it takes, that's what you tell people, remember, because it'll take for itself, and, you know,
when you get
with the members.
And speaking of which, I hope everybody here honors TAM membership when people come in. And if not, you may find your director's tires flat when they get back.
Yeah, well,
If we can't share with each other, who can?
that's one of my reminders too. Remind people constantly that you have a membership program. You know, whenever I do a video, I highlight our membership program. That's what we're about. I talk about our mission, and I remind people, don't bury it, don't bury the lead. I mean, if membership is really important and you want them to be highlighted, that's one thing that I want to do with TAM is, as we develop programs and as I develop the newsletter, it's gonna highlight members because we're a member-based organization. That should be pretty clear that that's a big part of who we are.
Yeah.
I'm actually looking to make a connection. So, just wondering if anyone here has done a new member acquisition via email successfully. We haven't been able to do that at my museum. No? All right. Yeah, I mean, we do direct mails, but we just haven't been able to figure out the email. So, I guess no one else. We do have a general email list. We have a members e-blast, and then you have a separate general e-blast. So if you come to the movie, whatever, you can sign up and get on the email, right? And we will advertise our memberships in that general email list, but we don't take that list and send them an individual, hey, sign up for a membership or anything. We're kind of all over that, so we haven't tried that. Does anyone actually sign up through like your regular meetings for a membership? Yeah, especially when we can show them the value of it. Yeah. So much, in one visit to the Village Museum, based on a family membership, will pay. So they'll save money just by the one monthly visit. We're neighbors, by the way. I thought so.
Yes, Desmond.
I stepped out for it, so I don't know if you want to ask it. Is membership month or a membership drive a good idea? And if so, like what activity?
You know, I'm thinking about, as I get into TAM, we start developing more resources and new benefits. One thing that I want to do is a lapsed member campaign. So that's people that were a member at some point, but either, they weren't engaged, they didn't have the finances to become members, but, if you can, I wanted to get that list to go back to them and say, hey, we've got some new benefits that we're offering, we're structuring things in a new way, this is my vision for the organization, as the prompt to have that conversation. Something has changed, and I'd like to reach out to you and talk about that change and see if you might be interested in coming back into a membership. So for me, the lapsed member campaign is probably going to be the area I'm going to focus on most because I feel like I'll have the most success in there.
I think it probably needs to be really targeted. I have seen successful membership campaigns like you're going to target all the parents who brought their kids to the summer thing because they were not members, and then just a sort of, hey, we're looking for members, and it's kind of random shot out there. That I've just never seen that work. We've tried it before, but we've just never seen it work. So I would say if you have done some sort of activity that has yielded a new list, a segment of the audience that you don't presently have in your membership, it might be worth it to do something special just for them.
I think every one of us in the mail, probably every week, gets things that are probably broadly in the category of things we might be interested in. National Trust membership or Smithsonian. And those mass mailings, already they're directed, but the national average of return is approximately 1%. no different at the local level, so mass mailouts are generally pretty unproductive. They really do need to be targeted, and I think it's kind of at the point of contact, where you really have your greatest success. You can, get a beautiful letter written and do a beautiful brochure and do all that mailing and everything, and I don't think you're gonna, I've never seen good results from that, but I think that if you kind of stay on it all the time, and we don't even have a membership manager. A lot of institutions do. That's a lot of money you're putting in to support that. But if your whole staff is tuned into that idea of every time you're engaging people, you're also trying to put in their hands the thought of becoming a member. And I think you're going to have better success with that. I think Alex is absolutely right, though. Lapsed members, that's one of the best sources you can have over time, if they're not dead.
They haven't lapsed in
Yeah.
right?
Question in the back.
Yeah, I had a comment on is there a good month or a reason to do annual? Gift giving around the holidays has been successful both at a children's museum I worked at and a science museum I work at currently. So reaching out to folks around Christmas holidays to say, you love us, why don't you give the gift of loving us to your loved ones, has been a really successful annual membership growth. My question is, I heard a couple of mentions about the way that you are tracking your members. And I was wondering if y'all wouldn't mind just going down the line and saying if you use a software and or is it connected to a ticketing system, or maybe what is your technology that you're using for your membership management?
Okay, quickly, because I know we're running out of time here. We have a new association management tool called Star Chapter, which is our website. But that website tracks registrations, membership, and different engagements within our platform. So job postings, event registrations, blog posts, comments, any type of engagement, it's beginning to collect that data because it's all under one. So if you can break down the silos as much as possible, you're gonna see a much more, a better view of what that looks like, and it has a dashboard on the front. And our membership goes, now it goes like, it's a 1 year from when you renew, so every day your membership could change. So if you got like, how many members? Let me look.